Thank you. Jen, could you mind doing the roll call, please? I can't hear anything. I see that. Jen? Jen? Well, we have some kind of technical difficulty there. So let me go through the roll call in lieu of Jen. Let's see. Commissioner Gadbois, please.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Kane is not with us as yet. And Commissioner Mejias is not with us. I understand she is going to be absent. Commissioner Crisati, I am here. So I think for the first order of business, we need to elect a chairman. Now, Commissioner Mejias asked me to chair, but that doesn't mean the commission feels the same way. So would somebody nominate a chair, please, for this evening? Pro tem.
I nominate Mark Crisati, chair for the evening.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Roll
Aye.
call. Joe Gadbois,
Yes.
Richard Clark,
Yes.
Mark Crisati, yes. And given we have 3 of 5 members, we have a quorum, so we can proceed with the agenda. I have not seen the minutes, given my unique status, I guess, as retired, but yet returning as part-time. So I have not received the minutes. Has anybody else, and can they then recommend approval?
I have seen the minutes and I make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, and I will, I will respectfully abstain, I think, and since I haven't seen them, will 2 votes carry that?
That I don't know.
I'll leave that open for Jen when she can weigh in.
Yeah.
Okay. Public participation. Now, look, City Council's rules so far have been, we have a 15-minute window of public participation, 3 minutes per participant. If you would kindly raise your hands through the function so provided. We know for the, so raise it on the Zoom and one way or the other. So I see Mary O'Connell, if you would please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Westfield Women's Club. We had hoped to get this matter on the agenda tonight, but I guess due to cross signals, it didn't make the agenda, but I just want to put it on your radar. Currently, we're here to ask for an additional 2 parking spots for the handicap, ADA compliant along Holland Avenue. Currently, there's 1 allocated handicap parking spot on Holland. It's the closest spot to Court Street. And what we'd like to request is consideration for 2 more additional parking spots beyond that. What has happened with the Women's Club, as many of you know, we've recently installed an elevator. And as a result, we have a lot of folks, a lot more folks coming to events at the Women's Club in wheelchairs. Previously, that wasn't really the case. I'm talking about not only the members, but public. There's a play running this weekend and last, and this elevator has opened up a whole world to folks in wheelchairs. But as a result, we need additional parking for them. So we are here to humbly ask the Traffic Commission to consider moving this request along. Again, I know it's not on the agenda, but I talked to your President Pro Tem this afternoon, and he indicated that the next step may be the Commission for Citizens with Disabilities. And if that is the case, I'd like to ask if perhaps you might refer that on to them at this meeting so that when you meet again in June, you will have their report and we could maybe move this along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Does anybody have any questions with that regard? And is anybody inclined then to make that motion, please?
I would make a motion to refer this to the Disabilities Committee, and I would also suggest that a sketch would help, so we know exactly which, just a little picture or a sketch so that we know which areas they're talking about, but should be a common sense request.
Thank you, Joe. Rich, would you second that?
Second, yeah, got it.
Thank you. So
Yep.
anyways, under discussion and under following the motion, look, this is a typical scenario or precedent has been set in the past that the commission looks for, the Disabilities Commission, to weigh in for on-street handicap parking availability. Understanding that there's certain issues associated with on-street handicap parking that are questionable in safety. However, the Disabilities Commission has come back in the past and strongly supported it, and the Traffic Commission has moved with that and moved forward. And certainly any successful venue in the downtown, especially the Women's Club, is a positive thing for the city of Westfield. And so I strongly support the motion on the floor. Call a vote. Commissioner Gadbois,
Yes,
Commissioner Clark,
Yes,
Commissioner Crissati, yes. And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the list. I don't even see Jen on here anymore.
She's gone.
So,
It
but
looks
it
like
is being recorded, so. Okay, and so it is being recorded. She'll be able to get the minutes from the recording as we move forward anyways. Okay, so Commissioner or Counselor Bridget Kane Matthews, your hand was up first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to discuss three things. One was I am in support of the handicap parking on Holland Avenue for the Westfield Women's Club, and I'm grateful for the motion that you made to send it to the Disabilities Commission. I also wanted to discuss, there was the study at the intersection of Orange and Elm, and
So that is on the agenda, though.
I can't speak about it in public
Well,
comment.
so if it's on the agenda, generally we speak about it when it's on the agenda and not under public participation.
Ooh. Then the two things I have left to say are for that, and I will hold my.
We'll look forward to hearing what you have to say at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public participation? Dan, if that's you, you are muted.
I'm here now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Dan Barry from Montgomery Street. And
Okay.
you just mentioned a note about it's on the agenda, and I saw that the speed on Montgomery Street's already on the agenda, so I won't address that because I did last time.
Okay.
But I have a new concern that I would like the Traffic Commission to consider, and that is the proposed bike trail that's going to follow Montgomery Road. I think, that's something that I think the Traffic Commission should go on record as opposing, only because Montgomery Road from Lawton down to the circle where Montgomery Road starts or Montgomery Street starts is a very narrow road, and there's not a whole lot of room to add a bike trail along that section of Montgomery Street. So again, I asked that the Traffic Commission consider opposing the proposal and let the people that are proposing that come up with a different proposal.
Thank you for your comment. Not to belay the point, but I certainly appreciate your perspective. We certainly don't have details in front of us yet to see how that might be managed in the tight space that's available But I do take your comments into consideration, and other alternative routes will be investigated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments that we might entertain this evening? Hearing none, I think we'll move on then to old business, Pearl Street. So to my knowledge, it's before the city council for enactment as adjustment to the code of ordinances. And we are awaiting city council action and then spring thaw for the actual erection of the signs. Is there any further discussion on that item? Yeah, Councilor Figgy.
You're muted.
That darn red sign. I do not have this in L&O, so are you sure it's in front of the city council?
That's what I received from Sergeant Mejias. I'm not sure if law department is still working on the ordinance to be submitted, the wording of it, but that's what I received from Sergeant Mejias. Dan and Sue, if I might request you strike the lower your hand function of the Zoom meeting, just so that we'll know when you're current. Thank you. Councilor Kane, Matthews Kane.
Just is coming out on the city council agenda, coming out of reports of city officers. It says Assistant City Solicitor Shanna Reed submitting ordinance amendments as recommended by the Traffic Commission relative to no parking on Pearl Street and Linden Avenue.
Okay.
So it is
Thank
on
you very
the
much.
agenda. It didn't go through L&L though, so.
It'll be
Okay.
coming my way.
All right. Thank you very much. So then item B of the agenda of old business, similar sort of scenario. Do we have any questions or concerns relative to that? Okay. Item C, Orange Street at Elm, a traffic study. So we did a traffic analysis of, Orange Street for relative to meeting warrants. The study was provided, I believe, to the commission, certainly to the chair at the time. And it came back with, my computer just went, anyways, came back with, it did not meet warrants. So at this time, I recommend no further action on that item. Do I need a motion? And please, Councilor Kane, Bridget Matthews Kane.
Thank you, Chair. I was the one who had submitted the request based on a citizen complaint. And I acknowledge that there aren't enough warrants and there shouldn't be a stoplight there. However, there were 2 recommendations in the report I was hoping the Traffic Commission could follow up on. Can I quote from the findings?
Please do.
It says, based on operating speeds along Elm Street, specifically for southbound vehicles entering the business district, it is recommended that A, speed feedback signs be installed on Elm Street North. These would encourage slower operating speeds and give drivers on Orange Street additional reaction time. And B, although the available sight distance looking right from Orange Street exceeds some criteria, it is recommended that the city evaluate the removal of some on-street parking along the west side of Elm Street south of Orange Street to further increase amount of available sight distance for vehicles at Orange Street looking right. I would hope that the Traffic Commission would consider looking into the 2 recommendations based on the study. Is my request.
Do we have any motions relative to those recommendations?
I guess I could make a motion that we assess the parking between Orange Street and, well, I guess it would be the parking in front of what, 252 Elm.
A 252,
And,
I'm not sure the number, but it certainly is what the restaurant at the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. The concern I have with that is we took away one spot to open up that crosswalk in front of there.
I appreciate that concern, but Joe, could you second so that we can have
Yes.
discussion?
I'll second
Thank
that motion.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Rich, please do.
Yeah, so the initial concern I have with that is we took away one spot to open up the view for that crosswalk in front of that same building. So the on-street parking has already been diminished by one. If we take another couple of spots, I only think there's 2 or 3 left there. So I'm not sure what that is, but we can definitely take a look at it.
I agree with you I think there aren't that many. I don't know if it's 2 or 3. I think it's a little bit more than that, but there's not many. There's very limited, and you do have active businesses there. I would hate to take further parking away, and I'm not really sure the value of it in that a vehicle exiting Orange Street isn't per se looking to the right in the southbound lane those, I understand that the northbound lane is concerned if they're looking to take a left and get out there. But I just think that it's a situation that has to be managed by the motorist in as safe a way as possible. Now, I do think, though, that the suggestion about advanced warning on the southbound Elm Street, and I will say that in addition to that the city has undertaken to investigate how to potentially eliminate or create to encourage people to get over into the center lane a little earlier by possibly removing a lane of travel, the right lane of travel under the railroad, so that if you're coming southbound on North Elm and you come to Pachasik, well, then you have the opportunity to turn right. But after that, or perhaps even to Old Pachasik, but at some point, at least by Old Pachasik, that you would be prohibited of continuing further in the right lane. You would have to be in the center lane, and that would cut down on the high speed use of the right lane in order to get around the right lane. And that's what causes, as written in the report, of people trying to get out of Orange Street. So it would help to facilitate. So that's under investigation. I have nothing yet to bring forward to the commission, but it is under investigation. Since we have a motion on the floor, I'll call for a vote as to whether to act upon the motion. Councilor Clark, please.
Yes.
Councilor Gadbois.
Yes.
And I will abstain as I'm too involved. Thank you. Okay. Item D on the agenda, Montgomery Road at Russell Road. Street and stop sign. I believe Sergeant Mejias would indicate we're waiting for a spring thaw in order to mount signage. If Commissioner Kane were here, we could see what. Oh, Fran, you are here.
Yes, I am here, and that's what
I'm
we're going
sorry.
to wait till the spring thaw progresses a little more.
Thank you, Fran. I'm sorry. At what point did you get here? I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
Within minutes of it starting.
Oh, I am so sorry.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mark,
Yes.
I'm back too. I think my mic is working now.
Awesome, Jen. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So, Jen, are you all right? I'm sorry I advanced everything, but I figured we were recording and you'd be able to get whatever minutes, and even if your microphone wasn't working, hopefully you had sound anyways. But are you okay, or is there some confusion on action to date?
No, I'm fine. And I switched computers, so I should be all set for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Jen, and my apologies, Fran.
Not a
So
problem.
thank you, Fran, for that update.
Yep.
Montgomery Road speed Fran, did you want to vote on any of the motions that we already voted on?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. All right. Thank you then. Montgomery Road speed, additional speed signs, again, speed study when permits. I'm not sure what Sergeant Mejias is indicating there, but I will have to defer that for her unless somebody else has further information.
No,
I think she's planning on putting the trailer out there, the speed trailer.
Okay.
They're waiting for the snow to be gone so that it was safe to do so.
Okay. And did I see a hand from anybody? Okay. All right. So let's, if we can, I hope I don't need a motion to table that until the next meeting. Do I need a motion for that, Jen?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay. Notre Dame Street speed sign. Fran, can you speak to that, please?
I believe we've installed some signs there, speed signs.
Okay.
For additional signs?
No, I'm not sure. When did you install this?
I don't have the date, but I checked with Casey and those had been installed. Yeah, shortly after we had voted on it.
Okay, so that was in response to the action item on the agenda.
Yeah, so those have been taken care of. I will definitely follow up to make sure that I'm speaking accurately, but it is my understanding that those were installed.
Okay, thank you, Fran. I believe we can remove that from the agenda. Turnpike Industrial at Lockhouse Road, a stop sign. Fran, your name is associated with this. Can you elaborate?
I believe that was the sign that's looking for some protection for it. There's a guardrail by the propane place. I believe that's
Yeah.
where we're talking. And I think that she was satisfied with its current status.
Okay. Well, so I'm good with that and removing it from the agenda. But Jen, before you do, could you run it by Sergeant Mejias and see what her input is on that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay, Arnold at Elm and Elm at Franklin, do not block the intersection, Sergeant Mejias. And I think everybody understands this. There's issues there. We all understand, I believe, what do not block the blocks means. We had this previously at Elm and Franklin. It's sort of crisscross markings at the intersection so that cars don't block it and the other cars can freely move. Is there further discussion or would somebody like to make a motion?
So I would have, what are we doing? We're going to motion that to the DPW to paint it, or? Is that where?
I believe it would take an ordinance to make it something enforceable. I
Okay.
believe it already exists at Elm at Franklin.
Right.
And then it would be a follow-up by DPW to go ahead and install those markings.
Okay. So I make a motion that we recommend a do not block intersections at the intersection of Arnold and Elm and Franklin.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadbois,
yes.
Commissioner Kane,
Yes.
Commissioner Crisati, yes. Okay, is there any old business that we missed? Okay, under new business, Meadow at Dubois, crosswalk signs. Counselor Figgy. The
Thank you,
crosswalk signs, yeah, I'm sorry. Please do, I'm sorry.
Okay. This is a request from a resident on Meadow Street. It came first as just getting the crosswalks painted, but I think there's an item further on down that may apply to this as well. But at this point, a crosswalk sign would be helpful, but just getting the crosswalks painted down in that area, I think would do more good than a sign. So, but signs never hurt unless you're Counselor Bean.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, you're looking for action item under new business to paint the crosswalks. And when you refer to signs, can you elaborate, or should we consider something further?
If you were to put a sign up, I think one that it doesn't need to be illuminated, it doesn't need to be flashing. I just think a crosswalk sign might be helpful.
And so where we're looking at that, or what is it, sort of a yellowish green sign identifying crosswalk? This is what you're
Yes.
thinking? Yes,
That's what
okay,
I'm thinking.
okay. All right. So could I have a motion with that regard?
Motion to install crosswalk signs at Meadow and Du Bois
And crosswalk painting,
and
Mark.
paint the crosswalk.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? Fran, do you have anything to add on this?
No, I don't. It seems doable to paint the crosswalks and put some type of high visibility signage as well.
Okay. All right, then, roll call vote, please, Jen.
Commissioner Crissati,
Yes, please.
Commissioner Kane,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadboy,
Yes,
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
Mark, just
yes.
a clarification on that. Is that needing some further approval other than this board's action vote on it? Or are we going to execute with what we've got here?
I'm not aware that we have to amend an ordinance for this. I believe there's been an ordinance, a crosswalk there.
Okay.
If you're suggesting perhaps we should investigate whether or not that crosswalk is legal, I mean, certainly, that's open for discussion, but, given that there's always been one there, I think we're good with, moving forward with what we have,
Okay, good.
okay? Okay, new business item B, Kellogg Street, north off of Orange, one side of street parking. Okay, so we're talking, no parking on Kellogg Street on one side. Is there anybody here to speak to this?
I can speak a bit about this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did not submit this. I did have a constituent reach out to me about this, and I asked him to speak to his neighbors to gather some support. This is one of the narrower streets. As you know, Ward 3 and Ward 2 have some really old, narrow streets. On Pearl Street, the neighbors were all in agreement, well over 50% that they wanted it on one street. And I did ask him to try to see what the other neighbors felt like, and I had not heard back until I saw this on the agenda. It is a narrow street. There's a lot of rentals. There's a lot of cars on the street. It is hard to manage, but I don't have the temperature of the whole street.
So I appreciate that, Counselor, and thank you. I did have the opportunity to speak with Sergeant Mejias briefly on this, and I understood that currently on Kellogg, there is some parking prohibition on one side of the street, but limited. And I understood it was sort of that the desire line was to extend that. And I'm not exactly sure how far. Was it from Franklin to Orange or all the way along? And again, as you mentioned, the butter and neighborhood reaction or response, I think deserves further investigation if we don't have somebody to report on that. So if we could, unless somebody has something further to say, could we table, Councilor Figgy?
It seems like we're addressing a lot of these streets one at a time. What if the traffic commission undertook a study to say any street that's X number of feet wide only has parking on one side or has no parking? It just seems to me that we're just going to continually get these. But if we had a standardized policy that said if in order to have parking on one side, the street needs to be so wide. In order to have it on two sides, it needs to be so wide. I think it might save you guys a lot of legwork.
I appreciate that, Ralph, and I think, Counselor, and I think you're right to an extent. But I do think that it does deserve a case-by-case discussion relative to the neighborhood buy-in and which side of the street that would be, rather than sort of sort of a cookbook saying, well, it's going to be this side of the street. I do think we should be sensitive to neighborhood needs, and I don't mean to speak for the rest of the commission, but if it's a little bit onerous, I think that's our responsibility to try to vet it on a more personal basis with each street. I think you're right, much more efficient and more straightforward, but a little more, I think it's a little more customer care to say, okay, well, what do you think, residents? Any further discussion by the commission, please, or any others?
If I may, I can speak about, there is no parking on one side of Kellogg near where the intersection of Franklin is. It's next to the liquor store. That was, I actually initiated that, was based on a constituent response. There was a lot of truck idling there. And it was also always blocking the intersection, which is related to when we're going to talk about the daylighting piece. So it was done for those two reasons. And I'm willing to canvass the neighborhood.
Well, so generally in a situation like this, I think Sergeant Mejias actually reaches out and tries to knock on doors. So I would look for her input on that. And certainly thank you for the offer. And if she needs assistance, if we could convey that to her, Jen, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
Yes, I'll take care of that.
Thank you, Jen. Any further discussion? Okay, so item C, daylighting intersections. Please, Councilor Kane Matthews.
Thank you. So this is a larger project I would like the city to look at. It's based on the fact I think there's just way too many crashes in our city with bikes and pedestrians. I think it's higher than it needs to be, and we need to look at proactive measures that we can take to reduce that. And daylighting is something, it's a term, that some places use. It's a very inexpensive way to do a statistically significant reduction in both crashes and the severity of the crashes. And all you're doing, I sent you kind of like my argument, and I had some links to like either a video you could watch about daylighting or just a picture that you can see of daylighting, where if you allow people to park right up against the crosswalk, it blocks the view of the sidewalks and you can't see what's coming. And if you just remove the first parking space, drivers have a much clearer view of the intersection. So it's something that only happens at intersections. And I would like the city, it would be kind of a two-step process. One is we would rewrite, our parking, where parking is prohibited generally. I sent you a document that has Westfield's current laws on that. And I sent you some of our surrounding communities. I sent, if you give me a second. And my favorite was Hollyoaks, but Northampton and Chicopee. Chicopee won't let you park within 5 feet of a painted crosswalk. Northampton won't let you park within 10 feet, and Holyoke won't let you park within 20 feet. And 20 feet is national groups advocate the 20 feet standard. So I'm asking us to just, we can just copy Northampton's and change that. But then we have to identify intersections where we want the signage. And I advocated for a few things. The one I think is critical is where we just had our latest pedestrian death was in front of St. Mary's, where people park right up to the crosswalk. I see that all the time. But there's other places too. And often these are based like statistically on where deaths are occurring or accidents and crashes are occurring, but it's also usually based on constituent feedback. And I would be thrilled to do that piece if the Traffic Commission wants to investigate this further. And you just reach out to people and you say, where would you like to see this happen? And so that's my spiel. And I think there are studies that show that this really improves things. So I'd love to see this happen. Thank you.
Do we have a motion for further investigation?
I would make a motion that we look into options for daylighting the intersections and the crosswalks in the community and see what's
Second.
available and what we can do to update our policies.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So I agree that there's merit on this. I'm not sure about a blanket of approach across the city. I do think that we need to take a look somewhat at a case-by-case basis. And Counselor, is that what you were thinking, or were you thinking of sort of blanket across the city?
I started thinking we should do it on a case-by-case basis, and then I reached out to Mass DOT and I spoke with Laura Hanson,
Yeah,
the area's highway district coordinator for MassDOT bicycle and pedestrian activities. And she says it's the norm for communities to not daylight just some intersections, but to provide parking setbacks at all intersections and then post the signage on a case-by-case basis. So like, that's how she explained it to me. And I could give you her contact information. And I think that's, like you can't park within 20 feet of a crosswalk where it's posted, I think is how it goes. But she would probably explain it better than I could.
so for further investigation, that's fine. I guess maybe part of that investigation would be whether it should be a blanket of act or case by case. And I got to assume we are not talking about signalized intersections, as they are signalized and they should be adequately designed for pedestrian crossings. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jen.
Commissioner Crissati,
Yes.
Commissioner Kane,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadboy,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. So the final item under new business, East Silver Street, from intersection of Broad Street to South Meadow, to reduce the speed to 25 miles per hour.
No, I'm not.
Counselor Figgy.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to former Mayor Knappich, as he brought this to me and he's been working on it for over a year, which is longer than I have. So he's got more of the details and the possible solutions. So I defer to him.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thanks for entertaining this idea. So, I've been on this street, Mark, as you know, probably for 32 plus years. And we are right at the spot of where Lindbergh ends. And my driveway is like literally right across the way. And there has been a steadily increasing uptick in traffic for sure over those years. But one of the real troublesome things that has occurred is cars heading eastbound coming from the Big Y towards Noble. They hit the underpass, the overpass at the railroad, the bikeway, and they come and pick up a pretty good clip of speed going through there. The car speed doesn't seem to be as bad when you're going to the west coming off of Noble. It's like there's a sense that, it's wide open. It's a good straightaway, and it makes it really difficult for us to exit our driveways at a lot of different times during the day. But one of the things that is noticeable, and I'm glad there was so much conversation tonight about pedestrians and crosswalks and things of this nature. I think there's like 3 crosswalks in a very short distance of time, right out in front of my house, right across street, and a little bit further up the street. And, we are loaded with kids here, elderly citizens, folks on scooters and motorized wheelchairs, and if there was a street that, unfortunately, it's like a major cut through, if you will, that probably has so much density that really sees a lot of action. And I gave Mr. Figgy and Sergeant Mejia some old traffic reports from 2012 when we had stealth stat on the street. And I think back then there was almost 7,000 or 8,000 car trips a day going through. It's got to the point where nothing stops or slows them down. So in the past, we had the sled put up, and it was put up at Rite Aid. And that was not a good spot because obviously when the light turns green and you're heading down East Silver Street towards Noble, you don't have a chance to pick up any speed at Rite Aid. So ideally, what I'd like to be able to do is have some sort of monitoring device like we used to do and installed such that it's measuring the speed of the vehicles and the timing around like a 48-hour period heading eastbound somewhere along the lines of the Lindbergh Cross Street, Casper Drive area. And in fact, I would think that, that's probably the spot where there's almost like max speed between Casper Drive and the Slovak Hall, because by the time they reach Cleveland in front or after the Slovak, they have to slow down and take a left. So that, to my best of my ability or knowledge, has not been studied. There was a device put on the pole at the corner of Lindbergh and East Silver, but it was monitoring westbound traffic. And again, westbound, our experience isn't so much the problem there. The other thing that, in this part of like tonight's debate was there's a stop sign coming off of Noble, and the police do a nice job generally enforcing periodic activities there. But, when you get to Lindbergh and Cross, there aren't any stop signs, and people increasingly cut down those roads. They're nicely paved. Thank you, Mr. Figge. And what happens, and I was, believe it or not, a fan of potholes in my neighborhood only because it slowed all these cars down. But what happens is they come ripping down those roads and they hit either a left or a right without, rolling right through it sometimes. And, I'm surprised, in the last probably 7 or 8 years, we've had at least 2 fatalities there. I don't know how many cars have collided out there, but it's something that there doesn't seem to be an easy solution. So I think Mass DOT has like a thickly settled provision that a locality can adopt, and it would allow for like a 20 mile an hour or 25 mile an hour speed limit through that zone. And I got to think that East Silver Street meets the definition of thickly settled. But further on that, I would like to get a readout of what the speeds are heading eastbound from the Big Y down through to the Slovak Hall. I think that would be kind of a telling situation. Now, typically, I can tell you from all the years of working on these cases, maybe like 80% or 85% of the traffic is within that 10 mile an hour tolerance that the police tend to use. And then you can see like outliers beyond that. But if the posted limit's 30 or 35, and we're going to allow a 40 to go down the road, then, that wouldn't raise anybody's concern necessarily that doesn't live here. So I'm thinking at like 20 or 25. Now, when you're hitting on a speed study at 35, that's going to get our attention a little bit more. So how many cars are falling in that 30 to 40 mile an hour speed limit, I think would be kind of telling, more so than like a 10 mile an hour allowance over the speed limit.
So if I'm understanding, you're requesting an investigation toward the implementation of a 25 mile per hour speed limit on East Silver Street for the parameters that you've defined. But what you're asking for is investigation, and then should it come back as you expect, then a favorable movement in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, before we go and post an area, I mean, I think we have the devices that allow us to generate the data that indicate that you can make like a science-based decision on these things. And if I'm wrong, then then I'm wrong on this thing. But my sense would be is that probably the majority of cars are coming in at 30 to 40 miles an hour, and that's just frankly too fast for the way the street has evolved over the years. And the issue at Lindbergh and Cross with just like rolling right through it right there. I mean, you're going to try to come out of my driveway and you almost get creamed by people, scooting behind you coming off of Lindbergh. There's just like, but with people on devices and not paying attention and the general demeanor of motorists today. I mean, I know the police can't be here all the time. So that kind of analysis would be helpful. Can maybe have a follow-up meeting, see where we go from there based on that analysis. And the other thing I think that might be helpful is posting one of those solar radar signs like they have on Route 20 that tell you to slow down somewhere along the lines of between like Cross Street and the Slovak Hall. And that would just hopefully get people's attention. And again, we have 2 very well marked crosswalks. Thank you, Mr. Kane, for painting those. They're signed as well. But people, I mean, I cross them frequently. They don't even stop for you when you're at the edge of the street. They just cruise right by you like you're not even standing there, And like I said, there is a huge amount of elderly folks and folks on different types of vehicles trying to negotiate our streets, and then all the kids we have now. I just think it's something that needs to be addressed.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we move forward and request a speed study on East Silver Street. And that would be westbound,
That'll be
Eastbound.
eastbound.
eastbound
Yeah.
on East Silver Street in the area of Cross Street and Lindbergh Boulevard.
Right.
We have a second.
Second,
Thank you. Under further discussion,
I have to do a roll call.
yeah, but hang on a second, Jen.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So look, Mayor, some time ago, and look, understand, I am on record of not in favor of speed bumps. But some time ago, given the, as you mentioned, the high propensity of elderly pedestrians in the neighborhood, I had vetted by a former fire chief, Regan, the thought of putting in a speed, a cross, what do you call it?
Right.
A raised crosswalk, as we do on Elm Street at the Alice Burke Way crossing. And she was okay with it. And understand that my biggest reason or biggest opponent to speed bumps is the fire department, as it delays their response time. But she was okay with it there, again, because of the high propensity of elderly traffic. But do you think that might benefit the issue at hand?
Yeah, that's an interesting situation. I personally like, the installation. I remember, we had these battles for years on Elm Street, right? We put signs in the middle of the road. We did all this kind of stuff. The only thing that actually arrested the speed where it made it safe to be on Elm Street were those bumps. And I know in the past, the fire department hadn't been a big fan of those, and we had to kind of, cajole them to do that. So it's interesting to me that the former chief was supportive of that. I do believe that that's like the last ultimate step for changing a behavior is a device like that.
Okay.
Do I think that it's necessarily needed here? It might be, but I think that we might have some success with the radar sign potentially warning people, like they have that so that when you're going too fast, it hits you with that laser light, like tells you to slow down. But once you go down that road with the hump in the road, you're not probably going to pull that out. And that's a big change. That would be, to me, if you're asking me, does that solve the problem? It probably does the most amount that you can solve it short of putting a cop on the street 24/7, 365.
So that statistically, you don't have a big impact by just changing the speed limit on a road. You have to
I
change the
understand that. I
driver's
do.
comfort level. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But, I thought, so, this is an interesting conversation, and this is some of the debate we had with the sergeant. When targeted or directed patrols were used in the past, if you were allowing a motorist a 10-mile-an-hour leeway and your speed limit's 30, almost nobody's going to get a ticket. But if it's 20 or 25 miles an hour and you give them 10 miles an hour, you're going to be issuing a lot of potentially more tickets. And so that was one of the challenges with doing that directed speed enforcement type of thing. It all depends upon how much leeway you're going to give a motorist if it's going to be successful. But then, like anything else, the police go away and it disappears and people go back to normal. And I think by and large, East Silver Street is a routine, repetitive pass through for people that they're on that road constantly. And it's not like it's a road where you rarely travel. These are typically commuters ripping through here, and they're probably living in close proximity to this area. So they know when the police are here and when they're not going to be here. So I think there's like multiple layers of what we can do here to get the ball rolling with the idea that the speed bump is the ultimate solution to probably the speed problem. Because it did solve it, no question, on Elm Street. We used to have horrendous public debate over what to do on Elm Street, and there hasn't been a peep that I'm aware of really since those were installed on Elm Street.
Okay, so if I could get then a roll call vote, please, Jeff.
Commissioner Crissati,
Yes.
Commissioner Kane. Commissioner Kane,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadboy,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody in the commission have anything further for the agenda? And if not, do we need a vote on next meeting, or is that standard protocol?
We don't need to vote on that.
Okay, very good. Okay, could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? I guess just an aye, I think will work on this one, Jeff.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.